Welcome to the Retail Media Moguls podcast, brought to you by Platform 195. We share trends and strategies across retail media to help you accelerate your brand growth. I'm your host, Stuart Adamson. Welcome to the Retail Media Moguls podcast. I'm your host, Stuart Adamson, founder and CEO of Platform 195. Today, we have the pleasure of welcoming Andreas Antrup as the SVP of Partner Services at Zalando. Andreas leads the charge in developing innovative partner-facing services and managing commercial relationships across various marketplace and wholesale models. With a strong foundation in both general management and product management, he's played a pivotal role in building Zalando marketing services from the ground up, creating a comprehensive suite of offerings that empower brands to connect with over 50 million active customers across Europe. Andreas's expertise in data-driven marketing, machine learning products, and consumer insights positions him at the forefront of e-commerce evolution. Join us as we explore Andreas's insights on the future of retail marketing, the importance of partnerships, and how Zalando is shaping the landscape of online fashion and lifestyle commerce. Welcome to the show, Andreas.
Thank you, Stuart. Happy to be here.
Well, tell us a bit about your journey with Zalando, because I think we were talking just before, and I remember when we were at Thomas Cook Group and building that retail media business, I remember Zalando starting around 2015. Was it around then? I sort of vaguely remember that and thinking you guys were doing a great job.
That's about when we started with media services, indeed, or media solutions as we called it back then. My journey at Zalando stretches even further, 13 years, so I'm a true veteran of the company. And the major roles here have been, one, to build data science from the ground. So when I started, there were exactly 0 data scientists at the company. Now it's a couple hundred. And there are things that by now I would establish, like fraud detection, recommendation engine, search, pricing, algorithmic, discounting, these kind of things. Then pivoted back in 2015 into a more commercial role to build our advertising business. And over the past, I believe now 3 years, I've had the pleasure of also leading our marketplace. So the third-party business where we don't hold the inventory, which by now is around 40% of what flows through in terms of merchandise volume.
Let's take a step back and just talk about Zalando partners, Zalando marketing services. Give us an overview of its offering, the scale of it, number of campaigns, partners, that sort of thing. So our listeners can get a good view of what you are. What I'll also say is a lot of our listeners are from around the world. So if you've got an overview of what Zalando is as well, that would be great too.
Sure thing. So Zalando is the preeminent fashion and lifestyle platform in the e-commerce field in Europe. And we serve around a bit over 50 million active customers and across the majority of our European markets. And through marketing services, our partners, so the brands and retailers that sell on Zalando, can get, if you like, a more direct access to this customer base and talk to the consumer through our apps, but also through third-party media. And we help them action that in a manner that aligns with their strategy and helps them to build not only their business on Zalando, but also their brands on Zalando via insight services. So helping them understand how in this consumer base of Zalando's, they are being perceived, benchmarked, and also what momentum they have in what areas and what countries. And then to building on that, devise campaign strategies, but also seasonal and multi-year strategies in terms of where to build out their brand, where to strengthen certain aspects of it, and then action that through creative services and media services.
Fantastic. So how is that insight being fulfilled? Is that your internal data science team? Have you got external partners? How does that actually physically work for a partner?
So the insights piece is to a large degree already today a self-service exercise, i.e. dashboards and CSV and downloads of data where then the partner can work with in-depth with their in-house team. If they want to get an agency on board to help them with it, also totally fine. And this is one of the areas where we are happy to have invested over the years quite substantially. I can also reference a fairly recent development, which is the customer journey compass, where we, for the first time, present the, if you like, the funnel development of a partner on a customer level. So you could see how many customers am I selling to end to end? How many customers, if you like, engaging with my product, but only just engaging and comparing and these kind of things? And what are the customers that are getting into contact with my brand, say in different formats, but actually not yet engaging with my product. And the nice thing is about this is that since we're talking number of customers, we can actually show this in real numbers. We can show this against your peers. We can name those peers. So you have a very clear view of how the dynamic of your brand is evolving in the context of the market that you're competing in. And then, of course, it also shows you where in the funnel are you possibly a bit narrower than others, where are you broader than others, which again gives you a feeling, where are my, if you like, funnel conversion steps better or worse? Where is it that I lose? And then you can go and do some sleuthing on what may be the reason and address it through the full marketing suite and assortment suite.
And what's informing that data? Is that just your own data, or are you bringing in third-party data sources?
It's predominantly first-party data. So we do on, if you like, bespoke basis. So when through Retain also, we work with analysts on our data on your behalf. Then you can also look in, hey, we have this third-party piece that we want to integrate, that we do, but by default, we concentrate on figuring out the opportunity space on the Zalando customer base.
And how does the commercial model work? Are you, by being a partner of marketing services and buying media, you get access to that insight, or do you have a separate commercial model for insight and or an upsell into the Compass model? What's the commercial model?
So our default is to say that we want to have our partners, if you like, eye to eye. We want to enable all of them to be the best they can for the Zalando customer. But naturally, there's always more questions. Is this virtuous circle, or perhaps it's also the evil circle? Question gives an answer, brings more questions, more answers, and you never stop. So we do also offer the chance to go deeper. And that's where it becomes a paid service. And that's also where we are very, how should I say, thoughtful and diligent to consult the partner to not get lost, but to stay focused on what can be meaningfully answered based on the things that we can experiment and do with analytics.
So that self-serve model, where they come in and have a look at that, do you have a self-serve model then for all of the partnership activities, all the media buying that they can do, that goes through that same self-serve model?
In principle, even though we have an extended beta model, so it's not like everything goes live in one go and then for everyone, but it's a staggered approach that they can take a bit longer. So to be very clear, the customer journey compass today is not open for everyone.
Okay. So you've got 3,500 partners, I think I read on your website. Is that right?
It depends a bit on how you count, but it's in the thousands. Depends on how you count legal entities, this kind of thing, and versus brands versus partners, but it's in the thousands.
So how do you service that many partners? How is your partnership model for the big partners and the smaller partners in terms of how you service that volume?
Well, you see, fashion is a fairly concentrated industry. So if you take the top couple hundred partners, then you had more than half of the overall merchandise volume, and also around that figure in terms of marketing spend. So naturally, you have a bit of a differentiation in how you work with these partners. And essentially is the difference between managed and a self-service setup, where the majority of our partners work in a self-service setup, but for a very good chunk of our partner base, we work in a managed service setup. And what is increasingly coming into play is hybrid, i.e., if you call plain vanilla, always on baseload advertising that's done in a self-serve setup by everyone. And then the more bespoke, the bigger campaigns, that's what you then do, engaging person to person.
Interestingly, and you don't often hear it, well, you do, a bit unfair, I suppose, but ultimately one of the things we talked about there was the customer in the role of actually what you're looking at is not just the customer journey, but also how the customer features in those campaigns and what's the best for a Zalando customer. Tell me the import about how you're doing customer-centric marketing for your partners. Give me a bit of insight around that if you can, or how you're enabling your partners to really reach the right customers, make that speak to customers in the right way. How are you involving the customer in that?
Well, it starts with painting a very clear target picture where you want to be. And ideally not a question of where do I want to be with this campaign. I mean, it's important to have a clear objective and KPIs that you want to hit, and also a view on what is a good outcome, what is not a good outcome. But what we see time and again, it really helps if you have a clear midterm vision of where you want to be on a customer level. You need to have it in, if you like, in a qualitative manner. What kind of role do you want to play in the lives of customers? But it helps if you can break that down into performance indicators, metrics that show you, am I on the way towards where I want to be? And how do I support that? In what steps with marketing? Another way to put it is helpful if you don't look at marketing as a silo only, but within the broader context of your strategy on the Zalando channel, the European go-to-market. So it's good to have that in context. If you have that context, then we can come into play. A helpful hand is breaking that down into customer metrics. So to understand what kind of customer base do you have today on Zalando versus where do you want to be, where can you be a couple of years from today, depending on how you play the full piano, the suite of services, and also your strength. And that's where, again, coming back to the customer journey compass, you have a look at how do you build that funnel and how do you, through the combination of, if you like, a calendar-based campaigning with an agile performance marketing setup, how do you build out your path to your target numbers?
So on that note, and talking about that funnel, you guys are quite advanced in this space, and you've actually developed that creative agency offering now, which tends to be a sort of fairly advanced piece of the retail media journey. Tell me a bit about, firstly, what role does upper funnel play in the customer mix in terms of how you're bringing that into the marketing services bit? And then tell me a little bit about the creative solutions that your partners are buying from you.
Sure thing. So it calls a bit for a textbook answer of, the upper funnel, the brand is like the health that you only feel when you lose it. And again, I come back, it has to be in the context of your general strategy. But what I can say is, and you talked about where's this going? What's the future? There's a few things that we see as Zalando that I think gives a hint. One is that the silos between the funnel steps are breaking away. So what used to be very clear, oh yeah, this is what I do for upper funnel, this is what I do for lower funnel, this is perhaps what I do in mid funnel. These things are increasingly interconnected. And we see that both, if you like, from the bottom funnel up. If you take Zalando as an example, for many partners, they started out seeing us as a performance channel, and then they realized, hey, I can actually see what's happening with my customers, potential customers, consumers out there, if I play more mid-upper funnel, and then how does that translate over time? And what we also see is that through the investments in content and features and the like that we make, we also see more time that the consumer is spending in the right mood on apps like Zalando's. At the same time, you have from the, if you like, more traditional upper funnel end, the media apps, they're trying to move into the lower funnel with advertising services, with connection into commerce platforms like Zalando. And that means this funnel play, including as we talk with our partners, you look at it in a more integrated manner, both from a metrics point of view, but also from a creative point of view. We are not quite where East Asia is. In East Asia, you often have, if you take live stream shopping, you, so to speak, have the whole funnel in one fell swoop within, 5 to 10 minutes. In Europe, the consumer is still slower. Decision-making doesn't go that fast. So typically, you still need like a week for the full decision-making. But already you see signs that some of this more condensed funnel is also landing here in Europe. So that's one of the areas where we are very much in discussion, and where in an era where, number one, people spend ever more time online, and B, things like third-party cookies and so fall away, retail media is a very interesting place to place your bets on and to build out this full funnel view, not only the harvesting, so to speak.
And tell us about the creative solutions then that you are offering.
So let me first say that we are very open on this front. So many of our partners, they essentially leverage the established relationships they have with creative agencies, also in the context of activation on the Zalando channel, and also in the context of also the bigger collaborations that we do brand to brand, so to speak. But there's also a very big chunk of the campaigns that run on Zalando that feature creative that comes out of our studios. To a lesser degree, that comes out of dedicated creative work with third-party agencies that are in play. And the advantage that this brings is that dedicated creative typically performs a bit better because it's building on what's clicking with a customer that we see day to day. And there's tons of campaigns flowing through Zalando every day. So there's lots of opportunity to learn what is clicking and what is not, what is resonating. And also, if you look at 50 million active customers, and that means it's a manifold that actually consumers come and check, there's a certain, if you like, minimum mass where also dedication pays off and where you can devise your strategies specifically for building out this piece. It's like a medium-sized European country, if you like, that you're playing with.
Brilliant. So tell me a bit about the technology now, because obviously limited time left, but How are you doing ad serving? How are you doing media buying? Is that in-house? Have you got order management system, inventory management system? What does your stack look like that you can tell us?
So let me just say, when it comes to the offsite marketing, so the media buy that's happening not on Zalando, then we are essentially working with best of breed third-party tooling to a large degree and leveraging then the first-party data that we bring to the table, as well as, let me just say, the know-how, the experience as an advertiser ourselves. We've spent hundreds of millions of euros over the years. When it comes to the on-site marketing piece, so the media we place in the Zalando app in particular, that's where the system landscape that we operate is to a very large degree homegrown. And this is the advantage of having had something like basically 10 years of investments into this tech. It's also to a degree the disadvantage, because I have to say the field has been moving quite a bit in terms of tooling support out there. But then we're also very happy to say that when it comes to how do we engage with the right customer at the right time, in the right format, right context, the user response models, the customer understanding, that very much is helpful. That very much is very strong.
And what about sort of order management and campaign management? Do you have a customer data platform in there? How does that management of campaigns work?
That is also essentially a homegrown system, which translates the objectives of the campaign, of the advertiser, into bidding strategies and optimization across the landscape. Today, what I would like to see at some point in the future, that we do this across all media. Today, this is within the on-site media silo, and then the off-site, on-site is something that we would do manually. But that's something for the future.
We talked earlier about your partners and a bigger partner, and you talked about brand-to-brand partnership. Can you give us an example of a really great campaign where a partner's come in and done something really exciting and interesting with Zalando?
If you look at the bigger campaigns we did this year, actually the on-launch campaign is a good example. So we know 2024 is a year of sports with the Olympics and the Euro. It's also a year for Zalando to hit the accelerator on sports. So it's one of the, as we did in the strategy update in March, is one of the propositions areas that we want to build out. And so, of course, we are also very keen to work with strong partners to bring them onto Zalando to build out that proposition towards the customer together. And as we launched on, back in Q1, I believe it was, what I liked about it is it was a collaborative effort to bring together what's the objective of the partner, what is the objective of Zalando's, and how can we find the right middle ground where both parties say, hey, I really want to make this work. On a strategic level, why to launch on Zalando, but also tactically how to do a launch, a go-to-market, including the campaign surrounding it. And in this campaign, we leveraged what we had learned about the customer and their awareness and their view on these kind of things to build a three-phase approach that, again, let the customer run through that funnel fairly quick. And that really, if I recall, we had over 100 million unique users that we reached. And from the early launch, the engagement on the product through detail pages, I think it was ×4, ×5 within a very short amount of time. So if you have dedicated understanding of the customer, dedicated creative services around it, and then a clear campaign strategy that informs how you do the media, you can achieve amazing results in a relatively short amount of time.
Brilliant. So you've obviously been there from the beginning, Andreas, and obviously you've seen that grow over the last maybe 10 years. From a macro point of view, obviously retail media is now sort of gathering pace hugely across Europe, for example. What do you think's next? What's next for Zalando? Or actually on a macro level, what's next? How do you see it evolving further now?
That's a tough one. There's so many things that can change. But perhaps I can comment on what will not change. I think the trend towards leveraging retail media from a brand perspective to build one's business, that's not going to go away. And the drive of the platforms to enable retail media across broader swath of the funnel, that's also not going to go away. And these two things together mean, I think you will see retail media picking up an increasing, very clearly increasing space of marketing budgets. And it will also be leveraged across the different silos of marketing budgets at advertisers. You asked quite a bit about measurement and tech. I think that's where the journey is going to be interesting. If you like, a halfway standardized setup we have today in the industry in terms of measurement. And I can see a scenario where that is becoming a lot more standardized. So what we saw at marketing services at Zalando is if you turn something like measurement from a chore into a USP, that can be very powerful. And I think this is also part of what the industry will realize. If you take something that used to be, oh yeah, we have to do it because this is how it's done in the industry, I mean, that's actually playing to my strength because I can see and track the behavior of who I'm marketing to, then that can be a big accelerant, even more so than it is today.
I like that. So look, we've only got a couple of minutes left. So what I did, because we're drawing near to the end of our half hour, but I did in the last podcast, I did a thing that I do with my kids when they come home from school. They sit at the table and I ask them, or I used to sit at the table and ask them how their day was, and they would just say, good. And I could try to get them to talk a bit more. We played this game called Rose, Thorn, Bud. So Rose is something good that's happened that day. Thorn is something bad that's happened that day or could be better. And Bud is something that they look forward to. So we did this in the last podcast. From a retail media perspective within Zalando, a rose is something that you think is going really well. A thorn is something you feel like you could improve. And Bud is something that you're looking forward to. Do you think you could give us your rose, thorn, Bud?
Okay, let me highlight three things that are perhaps stepping out a bit out of the very exact marketing services advertising. But the thing that really makes me feel very positive about the future is when I look at how over the past 18, 24 months, we see partners figure out the full claviature of how to play on a platform like Zalando. And if you leverage insights, if you steer your assortment, your merchandising, together with your advertising, you invest into customer experience. So on the logistics side, across the different dimensions in how you represent your product. So if these things come together, you can see really very strong results commercially and also on the brand side. And I'm very pleased to say that naturally advertising plays a very big part in making that happen. I think that will be the rose that I'd like to highlight. On the thorn side of things, it really is interesting for all parties involved if everyone has a sustainable, growing, profitable business. And so inefficiency that you have in that flow, that really hurts. And today, I still see a lot of inefficiency in how across partners and us we run a business. But there's an opportunity on that, but we could do a lot better. And finally, on the bud, what I find more on the budding stage is this full funnel view. So the full funnel view together with partners, how do we take a 2 to 3 year view and build out an area, an assortment space together in this customer space? I think the early stages that we do, the pilots that we do, it's very encouraging. And that, of course, there's a lot of fun then for the consumer, for partners, for us, for the team to make these things then come to life.
Exciting stuff. Brilliant. Well done. Put you on the spot with the rose thorn, Bud. It's a nice way of clarifying it, isn't it?
You did indeed.
Well, look, Andreas, we are out of time, but thank you so much for taking part. I hope that was interesting chat for you. Certainly has been for our listeners, I think, and for me. So thank you very much indeed. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Stuart.
The Retail Media Moguls podcast is brought to you by Platform 195. To learn more about Platform 195 and how to connect retail media with intelligent marketing to accelerate growth, visit platform195.com. And then make sure to search for Retail Media Moguls in Apple Podcasts, Spotify and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And on behalf of the team here at Platform 195, thanks for listening.